Hello friends, I am Manish Maharshi, Assistant Professor, Department of English, Government Dunga College, Bikaner. Today in this video, we will try to understand the poem The World is Too Much With Us by the famous romantic poet William Wordsworth. William Wordsworth, the great poet of nature and humanity, was born at Cockermouth in Cumberland on April 7, 1770, and began his career as a poet quite an early in his age. Wordsworth was a very voracious reader and always wanted to change the kind of poetry that was written during his time. And his lyrical ballads, published in 1798, heralded a new era in English literature and smashed the old, artificial, superfluous, and hackneyed theory of English poetry of previous age. Wordsworth was the fervent worshipper of nature and believed that nature has its own soul which nourishes human life in its manifold dimensions. Wordsworth is also known as the father of the Romantic poetry, the age that started with the publication of his lyrical ballad in 1798. Wordsworth defined his work as experimental because his poetry was devoted to nature and free flow of emotion and what he called the real language of men. The world is too much with us is a great example of Wordsworth's devotion to nature and writing lyric sonnets. Now I will recite the sonnet and then we will discuss what Wordsworth wants to say through this sonnet. The world is too much with us. Late and soon, getting and spending, we lay waste our past. Little we see in nature that is ours. We have given our hearts away, a sordid boon. The sea that bears her bosom to the moon, the winds that will be howling at all hours, and are upgathered now like a slipping flowers. For this, for everything, we are out of tune. It moves us not. Great God, I would rather be a pagan, circled in a creed outworn. So might I, standing on this pleasant lay, have glimpses that would make me less forlorn, have sight of Proteus rising from the sea, or hear old Triton blow his withered horn. The World is Too Much with Us is a sonnet by William Wordsworth is about the loss of nature caused by humankind. In the in this poem, Wordsworth is lamenting society's need and greed for money and things. In the first line, we immediately see his complaint. The industrial age was beginning in steam locomotives, machines, and factories. The poet finds that most men are engaged in a blind race of earning money and spending it on materialistic things. Later or sooner, this race is joined by everybody in the society. Thus, the poet believes that we are wasting our past. Definitely, he is talking about the spiritual past by distancing ourselves from the nature. The poet knows the potential of humanity's powers but fears it is clouded by the mentality of getting and spending. The poet calls our progress as sordid boon, as it is detrimental to the spiritual progress of human being. He says, little we see in nature that is us, we have given our hearts away, a sordid boon. He expresses his sorrow and says, we are blind to nature and her bounty. The beautiful sights and sounds of nature do not attract us and give us any pleasure or comfort. The poet calls this a sordid boon. This divorce of man with nature tortures the mind of the poet. In the next three lines, the poet shows us the beautiful picture of nature. The sea that bears her bosom to the moon, the winds that will be howling at all hours, are upgathered now like a sleeping flask. The poet is charmed by the eternal beauty of the sea, reflecting moon on a still night. Wordsworth was a lover, admirer, and worshipper of nature, and nature in turn was friend, philosopher, and guide to him. The two beautiful images from nature shows poets' attunement with the world of nature. But these natural sights of beauty do not attract the modern man, as he has distanced himself from the nature. He finds that modern man is blind to this beauty. He is out of tune with the sight and sounds of nature. He gets neither pleasure nor comfort and peace of mind from nature. Wordsworth is so much oppressed with this incentive nature of modern life that Wordsworth breaks into prayer. Great God, I would rather be a pagan, suckled in a creed outworn. This preference to be a pagan is Wordsworth's own solution to his personal problem, but the poet suggests that it could also be a solution to the malady of materialism. The poet says that a pagan may be a primitive and outdated belief, but it will keep him close to the nature. Wordsworth says that in the society of modern men, even in the company of men, he feels loneliness as everybody is engaged in their own selfish pursuits. But in the company of nature, being a pagan, he will never feel that feeling of loneliness, as he will have the sights of nature, beauty, God, and goddesses. If you become a pagan, Wordsworth says, you may be lucky to have glimpses into the mystery and beauty of nature. As he says, have sights of Proteus rising from the sea, or hear old Triton blow his withered horn. The sonnet is ironical in its representation of humans in relation to nature. For the poet, the nature is vast, large, and indefinite, whereas it is incomplete, little, and insignificant to the people. Nature is offering real pleasure and beauty to the people, but people are running behind unseen and artificial pleasures and beauty. It is the real irony of human life that we never care what we have, but we always desire for something probable and possible. The same thing is taking place in the life of modern people. They have no time to consider and enjoy the beauty of the sea, the moon, the winds. Easily available and universal, natural beauties have been denied by people in the course of getting and spending something artificial, temporary, and inanimate. The relationship between mankind and nature in the present context is also ironical. The poem is a lyric in the form of a Petrarchan sonnet. The first eight lines, that is, octave, has rhyming scheme of A B B A B B A, and the last six lines, that is, sestet, has C D C C D C rhyming. The poet uses a beautiful simile while comparing the winds to the sleeping flowers. She has been personified as a beautiful woman opening her heart to the moon. The poem the poet uses oxymoron in expression like sordid boon. The poem is musical in nature and uses the words like we and us, thus engages the reader in the poem at a more personal level. Wordsworth concludes his sonnet mentioning the majesty, beauty, and mystery of a sight and sound of nature. The first part of the sonnet introduces the problem, whereas the second part provides the solution. In this poem, all the poetic lines are almost equal in their length. The poet heavily depends on the use of allusions and mythology. The word pagan refers to an ethnic men of Germanic root. Similarly, Proteus and Triton are the names of two gods who are closely associated with the myth of nature. In the part of the poem, the phrase great God has been capitalized. It means the speaker feels helpless in the human world and he desires to be supported by the God. The rhyme scheme has definitely supported the poet to make it more persuasive. The title of the poem has been repeated in the very first line by using the pronoun we. The poet is also taking responsibility of such a loss of nature. Most of the words like getting and spending, little and forlorn indicate commerce and modernity. At two different places, the poet takes the help of exclamation mark, sordid boon, and great God. Overall, the poem is well organized with the selection of proper diction. The poet has balanced the number of syllabic words. Wordsworth seems to have consciously crafted this sonnet which with proper consideration of rhyme, rhythm, and musicality. So, this is it. And if you have any questions or problem related to this poem, you can ask in the comment box or you can directly message me on my numbers. Thank you.